Thank you so much for having us. And sorry that it's my COVID that has thrown a wrench into all the plans. I really, really wanted to have Sara at my hometown store. And my mom is watching and she's like super mad that she didn't get to meet Sara in person. So Sara's one of my favorite people. And Malaprops is my favorite bookstore. So not being all together as was the plan is heartbreaking. But thank you all for joining us today in this format.
Yes, thank you guys so much. I mean, I'm so glad that we were able to still rally so quickly and still do something for the release day, because it is very exciting to get to celebrate this. It's such a long time coming, and I love this. Super random, but everyone's been posting the Mean Girls meme today. On October 3rd, he asked me what day it was, and that's all I can think of. We had to celebrate something today because it's October 3rd.
It's October 3rd.
So yeah, I'm so glad that we were able to do this.
It is also kind of ironic that I have COVID right now, considering the origins of the story and how we started off writing this book. Because when COVID was at its height, look at that perfect transition. I might be sick with a plague, but I can still transition a conversation.
This was always meant to be. I didn't even think of that. Okay, for those who were like, what is happening? We met originally in a Slack group that started during the pandemic. Because of the pandemic, then this is probably what was always supposed to happen. So
It was fate.
it's way too poetic.
The plague gave us the book and then it took away the book launch date.
Did. Oh man, that was some kind of like witchy sacrifice we had to do. Man, there's something at work here it's gonna sit with me for a little while. I need to process that.
So do we want to talk about how we started writing it?
Yeah, we might as well. It's kind of a good segue into like the origins of this book. Yeah, we met through a writer's Slack group, the Overworked Moms Writer Club, which I think you started, right?
I started. And actually, what you don't know about this is that this was my excuse to meet some new people, because I had like some friends who were like moms and we were writers and we were in the pandemic. Like those were the three things. And I was like, I would really like to expand my circle. And so I kind of like target, like you were one of the people who I was like, Sara looks really cool, but I don't know how to approach her. So I'm going to invite her to the Slack. And so I just coached you and made you join my group.
Oh, I feel so honored and special now.
It's true. I really was just like, I want to know her better. So like,
I didn't really have I had like my debut group of author friends before I joined this group, and like I had some other like people I had met before, but yeah, this was like really expanded my horizons. I'm looking at, we had 36 people in this group, which is crazy. It doesn't feel like it's that big of a group, but yeah, it definitely broadened my horizons, and I got me to know you better as well, which you'd known each other in passing before then. But yeah, and we started got together in the Slack group, and then I don't even remember what was the initial conversation that spurred this, other than we were talking about like the intersectionality of German brewing and medicinal women and witchcraft, but I don't know how we got talking about those things.
I think it was because we had both been working on historical novels, like totally different ones. And we were like, wouldn't it be cool if there were witches? But there weren't witches in either of our time period. Like it wasn't a very predominant thing. So like, oh, it'd be really cool to write about witches. And then we had there was an article about brewing. And then at the same time, almost, there was an article about the witch trials no one in America's heard of. And it's true, like I had never heard of the witch trials in Trier, Germany prior to talking about it with you.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I don't think I've heard of many witch trials outside of the Salem ones, just because somewhere we are. So like, I don't know that, but it is crazy, especially that we haven't heard the Trier one, because it was so big too. Like it rivaled, I think it was more deadly than the Salem ones, I think too.
Oh, it was far more deadly. It's the deadliest event in European history outside of war and plague.
You're saying a lot. I mean,
I'm not saying a lot. So like outside of war and plague, it was in the deadliest event. Like hundreds of people died.
Yeah, that's insane. I mean,
and the real witch trials, I think, took place over a period of 5 or 10 years. So it was a long time over a vast distance, with hundreds of people being accused of witchcraft and dying. And this is where we had to trim down the historical note because I get really, really into the history of it. But we can.
This is the time for you to shine about the history of it, though, Beth.
No, you can't stop me because I'm sick and it's my birthday and it's my launch day. So I get to talk about history and no one can stop me.
What you want to talk about, I'll just sit here. I'm good.
Okay. So, and in like researching about Trier, I also was simultaneously researching about the Scottish witch trials for a different project for Museum of Magic. And I realized that they're all linked. So the Trier witch trial started in Germany, and then the Copenhagen is not very far away from Germany. So Copenhagen sort of got caught up in the hysteria. And at that same time, King James the First and Sixth of Scotland went to Denmark to get his wife. And so he witnessed the trials as part of his wedding ceremony and then crossed the North Sea back over to Scotland. And the storm was so bad on the way there that he blamed witches and started the witch trials in Scotland. And then from Scotland, it obviously went south into England, England to Salem. So we can all sort of draw this line across Europe of bigotry and persecution of witches and women, really, because that's a large chunk of it was persecution of women. And so it was really fascinating to sort of see how all these pieces link together in history. And so many people in America, we only know Salem and we only had this like microscopic look of, oh, it was probably the wheat and hysteria and all this stuff, but it actually is linked to all the rest of history. We don't live in a bubble. It's all linked together.
Yeah, that was a really fun like domino effect to see like how this started and how it rippled across. And it was very timely too to deal with a topic like this at the same time as watching like all the political upheaval that we still have going on, and like seeing how like one little spark of one little person doing one little stupid thing can spur an entire movement. Before you know it, like somewhere half across the world is believing and professing this rhetoric that you're like, wait a minute, what? And it happens so much faster now because we have like internet and stuff like that. So, but seeing how something like that progressed in an historical lens too, like it's comforting in a way, because like we're the same people. Like we've lived through it, we've survived it, whatever it is, like we can still get through it because we've gotten through it before. So it was very fascinating to see that, to get to watch that play out in real time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the history part was the part that I really got really involved in, and I loved seeing the way the history all sort of coalesced. And then in researching the book, I discovered an ancestor from the 1600s who I had not known, who left Trier on his eventual journey to America, where I came from. So that was also a fascinating thing. And then I worked with my mother to find out the village where my people had come from in Germany, and we actually put it in the book. So that was like a fun little nod to the sort of personal history that I was able to put in.
Yeah, that was something fun that in the process of like our very early days of bumbling this idea back and forth, that we both have ancestry from that area of Germany, that southern Black Forest area. You've obviously done more research into it and gone to Trier, which I'm so jealous of. But I've done like the ancestry DNA stuff, and I also like most of my family lines come from somewhere in the Black Forest area. So getting to have like those cultural ties to it just really helps, I think, expand the book in a way for both of us, that we got to like have a personal touch to it that we wouldn't have otherwise had, which made it.
It's also kind of funny that my ancestors came from the Trier area, which is where the persecution was. And I wrote Otto, the character of the witch hunter. And your ancestors are from the Black Forest, where the witches are. And you wrote Fritzy, the witch character.
That's, my goodness, it was just a day for revelations. Oh my gosh. I didn't even think of that either. Well, we didn't even say that. Yeah, okay. I wrote Fritzy, the witch. And Beth wrote Otto, the witch hunter. We didn't introduce that at all, did we? It's okay. We wrote a book called Night of the Witch, you guys. It's on Beth's shelf. I don't have it with me here. It's there. It's green. It's very pretty. It's about a witch and a witch hunter during the deadliest witch hunt in Germany's history. I wrote the sassy witch Fritzy, who is the last surviving member of her coven, and Beth wrote Otto, who is the witch hunter who arrests her, and shenanigans ensue from all of that.
All kinds of shenanigans, from the there's only one bed shenanigan to the medieval road trip across Germany shenanigans. Many shenanigans.
Yes, many shenanigans. You said road trip, and my mind immediately went to snacks, which is important because we do talk about German food quite a bit. Because if you're going to do any kind of book, not even just like culturally important books. Like you have to talk about food. And there's so many amazing, delicious German food we talk about, like especially because this book is set during Christmas, and so we get to deal with like the Christkindlmarkts and all like that fun stuff. So yeah, we have. I don't know about you, but for like my Christmas traditions, I didn't even realize that like all the cookies that I make are German until like we started doing the research of the book. And I was like, oh, well, which makes sense because like my ancestry is German, that's where it came down from. So getting to like make those cookies again every year and be like, oh, wait, actually, like, I know the history of it now, and like the Lebkuchen and like all the different ones. It just made it way more fun and get to write those into the book. It's research then to make cookies and eat.
Research is so good. Like
Good.
Learning the history of something is really great, but also just baking some of the cookies, that was perfect. That was so good.
It was so good. And you actually like got to eat the things when you went over to Germany.
Yeah.
And went to Trier. You got to experience it. Were you there during Christmas?
I was in the Black Forest during Christmas, but I was in Trier before the Christmas markets came out, which was very sad, but I can't always have Christmas markets, I suppose.
In that area of Germany, they should just have like year-round Christmas markets.
All the time, always Christmas markets. That's all we want. We just want to go and we eat the food and buy everything. It's great.
Yeah.
I tried to my favorite Christmas market was in Cologne, and I tried so hard to figure out a way to get that ship to just like tip north and go to Cologne, but it didn't make sense for the story. So now I'll have to write a different story where they go to Cologne, because Cologne I think was one of my favorite cities, but Trier and the Black Forest were amazing, because the Black Forest, when we went, it was snowing and perfect like weather, perfect snowing, and the beautiful little hiking trails, and there was like waterfalls, and it was just like as pretty as you think it is. It was even prettier. And so that part was just like pure magic. But then going into Trier, because we had to do all of our research for this book separately in our homes, like on the internet. We couldn't go anywhere. We couldn't even go to like the library and get help, because this was the height of the pandemic. We drafted this book at like the height of the lockdown. And so like, even when I would send emails out to other places and like, can you tell me about such and such, I would get bounce backs and like, no, we're closed for COVID. And so like nothing happened. But we did a lot of Google Street View, and we would try to figure out like where the streets were and how long it would take to go from.
I will say, you probably did a lot of Google Street View. I was like, it's a forest. There's a tree. Like
forest, you can do that. But in Trier, all of the cities, those streets are the same from like the Middle Ages.
They are, yes.
Some of the buildings are still the same, like the apothecary, and like obviously the cathedral and stuff, they're the same, but like even the apothecary was the same. And so when I actually went there in real life and could like walk around and look and be like, oh, that's where the apothecary is. Okay, if I walk 5 minutes in this direction, I'll go to this other thing. And I'm sure like the people with me thought I was just absolutely insane, because I was like, I know where I'm going here and here and here, and just like darting around like a crazy person.
That is so on brand, because I like every time we do an event, I tell the story because it makes me laugh. There would be so many times writing this book where I would like leave her a note and be like, I know this is historically inaccurate. I'm sorry. And just like leave it for Beth to deal with. Just one time specifically, actually it was in the second book that we were working on, where like they were lining up to go back into Trier, and I researched it this time because I was like, I'm gonna get it right. So I looked, and there's like a Roman ruin before they get into the city, and I was like, okay, it's gonna be there, and they're gonna walk, and they're gonna see it, it's gonna be fine. And I wrote it. I was so proud of myself. Like I did it, Beth. I did it. I was historically accurate. And immediately you were like, no, that's not where that is. It's like, but I sent you the Google picture. I circled it, and like they're here, and it's like, but no, but actually, like this is over there. This is why I don't do it. This is why I'm just like, they're on a road and there's a tree, and that's fine, and that's all they need to know about it.
But on the flip side, when I would spend 5 pages describing the Roman bricks, it was very helpful to have you go, actually, all that matters is that they're kissing. We don't care about where the bricks came from.
Right? All else fails. Get rid of the accuracy, add a kissing scene. Right?
Yes. It was a good fail-safe.
It's a good rule to have in general, no matter what you're writing. Get rid of accuracy, just add a kissing scene.
Yeah. So I mean, it did work well for our balance.
Mm-hmm. It really, really did. Especially because history played such a big role in this book. It wasn't like this is my first time writing a book that was not a completely made up fantasy world. So having you ground me in our world was very helpful, because I was very used to just like, I'm making up rules. This is my world. I'm making it up. Like as I go along, I'm making up the map. It's everything. So having you be like, no, but it's real. You can't play fast and loose with some of these things, because this place actually exists. It was helpful to have that reminder of the real world, which was fun. We still have
like
that.
I had never written anything based on the real world either, but actually I think I learned how to do this from Star Wars. Because if there's anybody on earth who will pull the, well, actually, that's a Star Wars fan.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. That's completely similar to writing a book in the real, because you're writing a book in a completely established world that people absolutely will ream you for. Like, no, you said that thing was on that one. No, that's not where that thing is. But yeah. Oh my God.
And they know every aspect of it, and it's already on Wikipedia.
That's horrifying. I could never.
Only a little pressure.
Only a little pressure. You were not. Like, how is it not pressure? Oh my gosh, that's like so yeah, this was like a cakewalk for you then, after all of your Star Wars stuff. I feel like
I cannot get the galaxy far, far away wrong, but I can get Germany wrong. And I think the entire country of Germany would be more forgiving.
Oh my God, yes. Absolutely. Germans are very whatever. Just the Star Wars fans don't know.
Can't cross those.
We were talking about, did we finish talking about the origins of how we were writing it, how we got together writing about?
Yeah.
So we wrote the first draft talking about, because we wanted to deal with like how witchcraft and brewing and
oh yeah.
Which originally this book dealt a lot more with brewing and beer. And it's not deals brewing and beer quite so much anymore. And also one of the other elements that was, for me at least, and from Fritzy's end, that I wanted to incorporate was the medicinal knowledge that usually tied really heavily with witchcraft, and how a lot of that knowledge was lost, especially during things like the witch trials, because the people who were the keepers of this knowledge were targeted as being witches. So we lost a lot of knowledge of not just like how to handle certain ailments, but like knowledge of herbology and like local lore of like, if you feel this way, you should take this thing, which I've always found fascinating, especially living in this country as well. We've lost so much of that knowledge because, again, we murdered everybody who had that knowledge. So dealing with, from Fritzy's point of view, as somebody who was actively going through that and watching like her entire coven in the first chapter, she watches her entire coven get brutally killed. So she's actively losing her culture and all this knowledge, and becomes one of the last surviving people carrying the weight of this. And those are a really interesting thing to get to deal with, and to kind of honor the fact that when things like this happen, we lose a lot more than just lives. We lose a lot of knowledge and history and a lot of things that come with it, which was interesting. I feel like I just brought the mood way down talking about this.
Well, I'll continue on that vein because I'm good with following the train. But like that was one of the things that we wanted to include, was how history gets, like, obviously we know that history is written by the winners and the victors, and how a lot of things that we perceive get shifted because of who's writing history. And so some of the things like the pointy hat that we associate with witches, it was because women, usually widows, are women who, for whatever reason, needed to earn more income, would sell their goods, and they would sell their homemade goods. And so the first sign of selling a homemade good is to put your broom outside the door to indicate that you have goods for sale. Brooms and witchcraft became a part of a link for that reason. The hats were to stand out in a market crowd. So these are actually based on old hennin hats from the early Renaissance, late medieval period. And they're just tall, pointy hats so that you can stand out in a crowd. And like some some women would put like a little banner or something on the tip or something to kind of advertise their wares. So in a crowded market, people knew where to go to get whatever it is they're looking for. Cats obviously hunt mice. Mice love hops and grains and the things needed to brew beer. And so a lot of these things that are just common symbols to women got twisted into being symbols of witchcraft, particularly when some of the monks found out that brewing beer is highly profitable. And if you want to drive out your competition, call them witches, get them burnt, and then you get the good land and the good customers. Yeah. See, you brought it down, but I can bring it down more.
You did. I love that. I was like, right here. You just went, nope, we're going all
the way down further.
Which is also a very good analogy for another part of this book with like the body horror and like the creepy factor, which again, I started like up here and you were like, no, we're going way down here. It never would have occurred to me to make this book have a horror element to it, because it just doesn't, that's just not a genre that I have any interest in reading or being a part of until now. Because we started with the villain, the bad guy. And originally we were like, oh, we don't know about him. Like maybe he'll be like a redemption arc and like maybe he'll be in the second book. Nope. Like the moment he was on page for the first time, which is what chapter like, oh God, like 7 or something. Comes like later on. The moment, like his first chapter, no, Beth went and just messed him up. He was like irredeemable from the get-go. Creepy as can be, like, I don't want to spoil it, but like that whole first scene, I still remember vividly reading that for the first time and just being like, what have you done?
Yeah.
So having like I just think we're writing a happy little witch book. Like, you know, there's some burn-ins and stuff going on and like some like fun herb stuff. And then like, oh no, Beth comes in with the villain and like, no, he's going to mess you up. He's going to mess you up mentally and physically. It's bad.
I totally did not. Okay, that's a lie. I was gonna say I didn't mean to make him so evil, but I did.
Please tell me that was intentional, because that was,
yeah. I mean, it did escalate though, because originally we were talking about the bad guy being redeemable, and like the idea was like he would go through this journey and then he'd come out good on the other end. And then here's the thing: I am so competitive, and I'm very much a former gifted child. So I really want to like impress people. So I'm like, okay, he's got to be evil. How evil can we go? And I would just continuously make him do the darkest crap possible. And I just, it got a little out of hand. But now he's just a super evil bad guy. And that's fun.
He's super evil bad guy, but I don't feel like he ever became like a caricature evil bad guy. Like you fully understand who he is. Like right away, you know exactly like what kind of person he is and his motivations make sense. And it's just, he was dynamic. It wasn't just like, oh, he's evil to be evil. Like, oh no, this guy, and that's what made it so good, is like, oh, he's not just evil to be evil. Like, oh, he's like actually, oh no, he's like getting off on this stuff now. So good.
Yeah. I'm very proud of some of the things that turned out for that one.
Which that was, again, an interesting aspect of co-writing, is always like you get an immediate response to things. So like when you send, because we would send each other chapters back and forth, obviously, as we were writing. So we would get that instant reaction of like, oh God, like, oh, this is so creepy, or oh, this is so sweet, romantic. So you always try to like, I'm going to get a reaction to this chapter. Like, I'm going to go there. So you're constantly trying to get in the competition, trying to one up each other of like, I'm going to get a reaction this time.
Yeah. I found it a lot easier to get a reaction out of the body horror than about any of the kissing. So like, of course I want them to kiss, and like, it's a romantic story as well. And like, I would type the love scene. And then if I didn't get a good enough comment, I'm like, okay, Dieter's got to do something evil now so that I can get a gooder comment.
There's too many revelations happening tonight. I can't handle it all. I was being manipulated with the body horror.
Yeah. It was required for the story.
It was required for the story.
The story of true evil.
But it did make me, in the second book, it encouraged me to go full into it with the body horror, which, because in the first book, all of the body horror, I think, is from your point of view. So I was like, I'm not touching this. I think so, yeah. And the second book, I tried real hard. There was one scene in particular, two scenes I think I have, where I was like, I'm just going to go for it. Like Fritzy goes through it in the second, like real bad.
Yeah, and I've read this. I know. There's a scene in the second book that scooped me out so much that I was like, no.
Yes,
that was my goal.
I had to freak out in this book. That was my goal.
It was bad, y'all.
Yay.
In the best way possible.
Which is good, because it pushed me to write something that I never would have written on my own. I never would have gone horror ever. And now, you know what? Maybe there's a horror book in me just waiting to come out.
I mean, it could be fun.
Once you start torturing people, you never go back.
There's the quote for the whole show. Like, that's it. We peaked.
Yeah, Sara.
Okay, so, but to put it in perspective, most of the book is not about bloody human torture.
It is not. It's not a horror book, I promise. Yeah.
It's mostly a fantasy romance. And as much as I enjoyed writing like the horrible scenes, I relied heavily on Sara for all the kissing scenes and all the romance and making it like still a beautiful, like fun story that people want to have.
Well, and yeah, because you write the guy too, which I feel like people in romantic books, when there's dual point of view, having the dude's point of view, especially when it's a female male dynamic, people love like reading from the point of view of a male and how he sees the female, like, or how he sees his love interest. There's something about that, especially when it's a character like Otto, where he's like just super loyal and just like immediately like, what's that quote of like, so and so fell first, but then he fell harder or whatever. Like that's so Otto and Fritzy. Like Fritzy fell first, but Otto fell harder. So like so seeing her from his point of view, there's just something like really satisfying about that, and just watching him like he just loves her. getting to have those moments with Otto is always really special.
Yeah, and I like that we made the choice early on that like their love is true. It is not going to have like any of those miscommunication tropes. It's not going to have those doubts. Like really, really love each other.
Yeah, it's a thing. We talk about that, but there's so much else going on in their world right now. Like there's the upheaval of the witch trials, and then there's other stuff that they encounter once they go into the Black Forest and have all that stuff. So like they have enough going on externally. They can be good internally. Like the two of them, they need each other, which I think is really nice and refreshing to not have relationship drama be one of the plot points, because it's so rare that happens. I think in YA too, it's so rare to get a relationship that's just solid and happy, and they're just together and healthy, and that's good. And like that's it. Like they're together and they're just together, and it was so satisfying. And maybe we're turning people off of it, but like I really liked it. I felt it was rare and interesting.
Yeah, healthy is good.
Good.
It's really good.
Especially when everything else is unhealthy. It's nice when they're healthy.
No. So do we want to talk about Hildy?
Yes. You can talk about any of the side characters except for
So Hildy is Otto's sister, and she was our sort of homage to the original version of the book that we wrote, because she is brewing beer as well and is a massive complication in the plot. So in the start of the book, Otto is trying to take down the witch hunters from within. He's joined the witch hunters. He's trying to take them down from within, and he's worked with his sister on this very elaborate plot. And then Fritzy stumbles upon the scene.
Yeah, and Fritzy messes things up because that's what she does. She didn't mean to. She's really good at and she just screws up everything. She's like months of work immediately down the drain because of her. But it's fine.
Isn't it good? Like she thought she was saving her. She didn't know she was innocent.
Yeah, it's not like Otto could go around being like, "Okay, I'm doing something. Don't interrupt." She was from a good place, and it came at a very triggering moment for her as well. Like, there's no way that she could have at that point in the book. There's no way she would have walked on by seeing this happen. We can probably talk about it. It's like the inciting incident of the book, but
it's early on. So from that point on, Otto and Fritzy have to work together to take down the witch hunters and everybody there. I really want to talk about my favorite moment in the book, which is after it's sort of midpoint twist. So I can't reveal it, but when the familial relationships of the characters happen, that's like the moment when I just wanted to like throw down my computer and start screaming, because once you find out how all the people are connected, and it's in Sara's chapter, there's a two-word sentence where somebody says hello to somebody else, and that to me is the moment where you just throw your book across the room and start screaming, because it's such an impactful moment.
Yes, it was such a good, because up until that moment, like, we're getting to know the characters and like all the plot beats, but I think they have like the Chris Kindle market scene where they're like shopping, and Fritzy and Otto are having their like early banter, and then there's the one bed scene. It's like all these things that lead up to this like one, and that's the moment where the plot goes, okay, we're taking off now in this other direction. Yeah, that was really fun. Which is, speaking of other side characters and familiar relations, talk about Liesel, who is everybody's favorite character. I swear. Oh my gosh. Every time people read this book, like, they just love her. Liesel is Fritzy's 11-year-old cousin, who is, so in the very first chapter, when their coven is attacked, Fritzy is one of the survivors, but Liesel gets taken by the Hexenjäger, the witch hunter captain, the guy who's heading it. So Fritzy then goes after her, trying to get her back, because their whole coven is dead and there's nobody else. So Liesel is a little spitfire, literally. Her witch affinity is fire, and she is a little firebug, and we love her to death. She's so much fun. She goes through it in this book too.
Yes.
Yeah. She gets in the second book, but this is the book where she goes through it, and it I want to say things, but I'm not going to say it.
I will say that I had recently read A House by the Cerulean Sea, and the character there's a character in that book who's like supposedly like the devil and like Satan incarnate, but he's just a sweet little boy and so cute and angelic, but also could potentially, melt your mind. And so to me, that was a lot of Liesel. Like she is angelic faced. She is the epitome of like sweet, cute little Shirley Temple girl, but she will burn you up inside, literally with fire. And it is so great. And all Fritzy and Otto want to do is save her. And all Otto wants to do is like be her friend and her hero, but she doesn't trust him. And so having like this big buff, like guy, like fall in love with this little tiny girl and like try to impress her with like he'll carve her little toys and give her extra treats. And she has him wrapped around her finger and he just doesn't even realize.
I love that. That's one of my favorite dynamics over like both books. It's just watching Otto like more and more just like melt for her. Like just immediately like slowly like more anything. And more push for this like little 11-year-old girl. It's like, love me. Just eventually you just see begging her, just love me. I just want you to love me. I'm so sorry for everything. I feel like with her, like that's like the ultimate mark of his forgiveness of being a witch hunter. It's like, if I can get Liesel to like me, then how bad can I really have been? Like all the crap that I did to be a witch hunter, all the stuff that I sacrificed, like I can't be that bad if this 11-year-old girl forgives me. So like, and she doesn't make it easy on him at all. So yeah, watching their dynamic play out was really fun.
Yeah, that's the most entertaining and like just pure fun moment, I think, is anything with Liesel.
Yeah, which is good because she needs the fun moments, that poor girl.
So do you want to talk about the magic system and the goddesses?
Oh my god, yeah. Talk about any of this stuff. My gosh, I thought like, what else is there to talk about? Yeah, there's this whole other part of the book. Okay, so I feel like the book is kind of like got the two parts. We got like the part where they're in Trier at the beginning, and that's much more like Otto's story with the witch hunters and like because that's his domain. And then they leave Trier and go to the Black Forest, which is the latter half of the book, and that's more Fritzy's domain because it deals more with the lore of the witch world and the covens and her history that she isn't even really aware of her own history and what is there. She knows of like a myth that is in the Black Forest, and that's why she's trying to get Liesel there to like, because there's a myth among the witches that like there's safety there. She doesn't know exactly how true it is that there is safety there, but that's what they base that on. And yeah, the structure of the magic system, I'm always like, whenever I write a magic system, I'm always like, I'm going to make it the most simple magic system ever. Like each book, I'm like, I'm never again. I'm never doing something complicated ever again. And this book, I was like, okay, it's witchcraft. Like that's established, that's done. And my Fritzy is, her affinity is plants. So it's herbs, and that's easy. That's simple. No, it's still a complicated mess. It's a complicated mess, but we worked with it. We made it work. So it is still, so it's witchcraft. Every witch has some kind of affinity. Fritzy's is plants, Liesel's is fire. Fritzy's mom's was, I think, animals. And it's mentioned all throughout the book that all these different witches have these different affinities. But the way that witchcraft works is, in order to access magic, you have to either like follow a spell, or like for Fritzy, it's to put different herbs together into a potion, and that's how she unlocks magic. So really affinity is just like your way of most easily unlocking magic and getting the results you want, which becomes something that gets thrown into question later on and is spoilers. But in developing the magic system in the world, we try to stay as close as we could to like actual German lore and the history of specifically that area. and the goddesses that were once worshipped by the Celts, and like all like the temples that are still left behind. And there was a lot of really good resources on TikTok, actually, a couple of different TikTok accounts of these women who really got into the lore of like German witchcraft. That's a huge topic. You wouldn't think it would be this intensive topic, but oh my gosh, like all these people would talk about the different goddesses that were worshipped. We went with Abnoba, Perkta, and Holda. I almost said Hildy. Holda as the three goddesses, because the number 3 is also a repetitive theme within German witchcraft. And having the 3 dynamic with the maid, mother, crone is also a very common thing. So we took a lot of things that already were in existence with witchcraft and tried to stay as true to like actual German witchcraft as we could. Obviously, we've thrown a little bit of like fantasy elements into it, just because there are like actual fantasy magic things happening within this one. It gets a little play fast and loose with that. But it did help to use an already established magic system as something they're based off of, which is, again, something I've not done before. All the other books I've written were completely made up things. So getting to draw on real world things was really awesome and interesting. It added dynamics to it that I wouldn't have otherwise. Like, I really liked researching within that area of Germany. One of the women on TikTok had she had a Google Doc of temples for these Celtic goddesses that are still in Germany, like these like really like ancient stone crumbling. Like if you go into the forest and you hike 3 miles this direction up a hill, like you'll see like this pile of stones, and that's an old thing to Perkta. So like all these different things, which was really cool, and got to like look in that area of Germany and be like, okay, like which goddesses still have statues there. So yeah, I made added elements to the magic system. It was really fun.
Yeah, there's so much like cool stuff that was already there that we were just able to sort of exploit for the story, which made it even more fun. Like Holda is also linked to the White Lady legend, so we were able to kind of slip that into book 1. And then one of the things that you found that matched up with something I found, like I really wanted to deal with the Lenten masks, and there's these creepy masks that people would wear during the Lent season. And then Sara found out that they were also linked to the Perkta, the goddess, and they were kind of like overlapping, as Christianity often did with many of their holidays and practices. So there was that sort of overlapping element, and we couldn't fit it in the first book, even though God knows I tried, and I wrote those scenes so many times. And I'm like, and even when it didn't even match the timeline, I'm like, oh, they went in the basement of the church and they found the Lenten mask and they were using those. Like I tried really hard to put these in the first book. It never ended up working, but we do have them in the second book, which I'm very happy about. Like, I got to get my creepy mask in there somehow.
And it worked. It worked so well to get to have these Perkta masks and kind of honor the Perkta, the goddess who we made the mother goddess. And it was a really cool dynamic, because she's the goddess of like control and things. And so to have her also have this like really creepy twisted side of like, I'm in control, but I'm going to mess things. I almost said a word there. I'm in control, but I'm going to mess things up. It gave her a fun dynamic.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think we're almost ready for questions. Is there any last thing you want to mention?
No, we covered way more than I thought we were. That was great.
Well, what a great conversation. I am excited that we have gotten a lot of questions and happy to get to those, but sad that we can't just like sit here and listen to y'all talk all night, because it's so much fun. Thank you both so much. But we asked for questions and we got them. Yay, audience. Thank you all. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'm having to scroll like a lot. Hold on. There's a big list. Okay. So first question is, if you could travel into the world of Night of the Witch, what would you do and what would you take?
Ooh.
Would not go to Trier.
No, not at all.
I would go right to the Black Forest and stay there.
Yeah, the Black Forest is the safe area. So I would go to the Black Forest and stay there. But if I had to leave, I would bring some sort of weapon to help auto fight. Yeah. They need more weapons.
Oh no, you know what I would bring? Who was this? Who was it from? There was somebody that like went back in time and they had a lighter and like it just freaked everybody out because they were like fire instantly. They bring something like that just so you could like rule everybody. Like, look, I can make.
Just so you want to impress Liesel.
I just want to impress Lisa. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Look,
I think I think the classic answer is like, I would bring soap, but we made the Black Forest like a haven, and they have soap and they have baths, and we're fine with that. We don't need the hygienic
always
stuff.
the thing, right? Always, because this is what like the Black Forest ends up, I don't know, listen, too much of a spoiler. Like that's where like the native group is. And I feel like the native groups were always cleanly. And then like the outsiders were the ones who came in and were like, oh, you have soap, we must kill you.
Are you saying that the descendants of the Romans were just terrible? Because you're right.
Okay. I have to, with that comment, Beth, I have to just say how I feel like, so this is great. And the fact that y'all wrote this fantasy book together is great. But I can't believe that I would be the only person who would like to read your history book too, Beth. Do you know what I mean? Like if you could just sit down and write about anything you're interested in, just because of the, just the knowledge and the passion that you talk about.
I would love
to talk about the stuff that you've researched, for this book. Not that I'm adding anything to your to-do list, because you've already written several types of books, but like just add some nonfiction in there when you have a spare moment.
Well, there is
pencil that in,
note, right?
What?
You did the author's note at the end of the book, right?
I did. I keep meaning to expand it on my website because the original one was much longer. And they were like, focus on the relevance. So I was like, oh yeah, I guess I don't have to bring up everything. But yeah, I love the history. And I used to be an English teacher. And whenever I would do stuff linked to history, my kids used to take notes. And it was notorious how I would cover the whole board and like draw arrows and lines and like, and this is connected to this and this is connected to that. And I just get all super into it. I'm such a nerd.
But yeah, we're all about nerds.
And you write Bookstore.
Exactly. And you write books on writing, which are nonfiction. But yeah, I would love to pick up a book that you write about. Again, just anything that you're interested in. Like if you decided to write a history, I just think it would be fascinating. And
I would love to.
Yeah, and well written. So yeah, just on the list for future. Okay, so back to the questions. Karen asks, if Fritzy and Otto dressed up for Halloween, what would be their couple's costume?
I want to say a witch and a witch. Fritzy would suggest that, and then Otto would be like, no.
I think Otto would very happily like wear the hat and be the witch. And like he would dress up. He's a little bit of a himbo. And so he would not have a problem wearing like the dress and the cloak and like get little straw.
100% make
he would do that. And then Fritzy can have all the weapons and be terrifying.
Yeah, and Fritzy would 100%. I assume we're operating under like modern day clothes. Like she would find like the sluttiest witch costume for him to wear.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, straight up would just Yeah.
And Otto would not say one single word. He would just put it on, and he would rock it, and he would be amazing with a slit all the way up.
Be like, that is not. I wanted to embarrass him, but man, actually looks good.
Right.
That's great. And I'm sure there's some sewing machines starting up at home as we speak to to make a version of that come to life on Halloween. Okay, so first we do have a happy birthday from Hallie, and yes, happy birthday, Beth. So great to, even though the circumstances ended up being a little odd and, ye old COVID and everything, happy birthday. And we're glad to be here with you.
I was going to bring cupcakes for everyone, but now they're plague cakes. So nobody gets cupcakes for me.
Yeah. Just have our own individual, baked goods at home. And,
yeah.
Play safe. Yeah. Okay. So what made you two decide to collaborate, especially since you'd never met? So
yeah, we not only had we never met until after the book was already printed and in ARC form, and we did our first event together.
Yeah, so, in May it was Y'all West.
Yeah, whenever that was in the spring.
Yeah, so this year was when we went in person for the first time. Yeah.
Wow.
But we decided to like, because we were batting that idea around in the Slack group. We're just like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to do this? And I think we eventually were just like, you know what? What else do we have to do? It was COVID. We had nothing else to do. We were both had kids. Like my kid was like 4. I think your kid was like a year old or something. So we were like, might as well just give us something to do to kind of get out of our heads a little bit and progress.
Yeah, it really was just we were talking about it, and then like, well, I guess, would you like to write the witch? Would you like to write the hunter? And it just sort of fell into place. It was like magic.
That's the answer.
It just happened. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the answer. Okay, great. So what was your favorite memory from the publishing journey of writing this book?
The publishing journey of writing this book has been magic, absolute magic from start to finish. Working with source books, working with Annie, our editor, and working with Karen and Rebecca and all the people on the marketing side and just everybody. It's been fantastic. I have no complaints at all, which is wild for publishing a book. Like it's unheard of. There isn't even just like one specific thing. It's been the whole time.
I think for me, because I love once this was sold to source books, like it really was just magic. Like they got the book on a way that I did not think a publisher could get a book. Like they have just been amazing, and every person that we've worked with has been amazing. But very early on, we had one draft, and we sent it to our agents, and they had some significant notes about changes. And I remember thinking, I was like, okay, that was fun while it lasted, but this is where it falls apart, because rewriting and editing is where everything gets contentious. I was like, there's no way this is going to work. And I saw some of the notes and I was just like, I couldn't even wrap my head around it. And then like the next day, Sara came online and she was like, okay, so here's how we fix this. We do this, this, and this. And if you do this and I do this, we're good. And I was like, holy, that happened. And it worked. And it was just like this magical moment where I really thought everything was going to fall apart. And this was just going to end up being like our pandemic project that didn't go anywhere. And instead, it became everything.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, originally, that's right. Because originally, so Fritzy was always Fritzy because that's just who she is. But originally, the other point of view character was who ends up being Otto's sister. Mm-hmm. And Otto was another character, but he was like a side character. And we were just like, oh, he's just like dopey guy. But like the suggestion was like, well, what if we make Otto? That's the other main character. And it was just like, that was it. That was what the book needed.
Yeah, I don't even think we had the heist originally.
No, there was a lot of it that like, that was not there. And then Otto brought that in. Yeah.
That's great. That's a great story. And lends to the whole idea of it being meant to be, because, your co-author came in and everything worked out. Oh, that's awesome. So I'm sure you knew this question was coming. It's sort of in the middle of the batch. Can you tease anything from book 2?
Our editor is making us add more spicy scenes.
Yep.
Okay. Like a literal tease.
Literal tease.
There is a little bit of that.
An actual
tease.
As far as like plot stuff.
I mean, nobody here wants to get in trouble with source books. So, but there's going to
edit right now.
There's going to be that question.
One of the places, so I love, obviously researching new places and new stories and new things like that. And one of the places that they go is to a city called Glauberg, and it's a real German city. And there's real architectural ruins there that we were able to kind of build into the story in a way that I find really, really fun and fascinating. And everyone else can just be like, oh, Beth's going on her nerdy wagon again. But one of these days I'm going to go to Glauberg now, because that was one of the ones that we researched sort of at the end, because we were going to have them go to a different city. And then I stumbled across an article on Glauberg, and the architectural ruins played a significant role in a plot point. So if you want to be a history nerd like me, go look up Glauberg.
Yeah. We do get to go into a lot of some more other like different types of German culture and history and myths and things in this book, which was fun.
See, this is the balance. There's also fun things, but if you want a little mini historical lesson.
Like I said, like we're all about it. And you might be making Glauberg some tourist dollars right now too.
Went on the history thing.
It's going to be Glauberg's new ad campaign.
Beth Revis approved.
Yeah.
Then I'll know I've made it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the epitome. That's what we're aiming for. We want Glauberg to know we exist.
Glauberg to recognize me. Guys, I researched your statues.
That's awesome. Okay. So this is back to kind of your publishing journey. And it's a great, Jenny, it feels like a question from a writer. So what was your favorite editorial note? If you had one.
All of my favorite editorial notes were Beth going, Sara, that's wrong. that didn't happen. That's not where that was. Like, this wasn't so many. I should have taken screenshots of them. There's so many of them. They all made me smile because I didn't messing up.
I like this. I also like the ones where we got a few from our editor and she would just be shocked. Like it was just exclamation marks or just like a fire emoji or something like that. And I was like, oh, I win.
Yeah, very validating.
Competition here.
Okay. So another question from Emily. What do you hope readers get from Night of the Witch?
Well, I think, at least from Fritzi's point of view, one of the big themes for her is questioning belief structure, which was part of COVID. And, we had a lot of systems collapse and a lot of faith shaken and belief shaken and restructured. So I kind of channeled that into Fritzi. Like, she watches in real time as all of her belief systems just crumble completely. And then when she thinks she's found it again, it just, that one crumbles. So like having her go through that was cathartic, but also I hope people will also see that a similar catharsis in her, because she, as these systems are crumbling around her, she rallies and builds her own and decides, you know what, I don't need these things. I'm going to stand on my own. So hopefully people will come away with that, at least from Fritzi's point of view.
Yeah, I like that. I think Otto, for him, he thought he had to solve everything by himself. And so not that that's directly sourced from anyone specifically, but there was definitely this element of like he felt like he was the only one who could save everyone. He was the only one who could do anything. He came up with the plans by himself. He did not intend to team up with Fritzi or anyone, and he did not intend to trust anyone else or bring in anyone else. So a big part of his story was him learning to not just let other people into his life, but learning to sort of share the burden and rely on other people in ways that he didn't have that trust before.
Right. Two great lessons to pull from this book, while you're also having a lot of fun and some smooching and a little horror. Like, what more could anybody ask from a book? Magic, smooching, life lessons, body horror,
all the good stuff,
all the stuff.
My whole body horror.
Yeah, like magic, smooching, life lessons.
Oh, sorry, I just lost track there for a second. Okay, I'm going to skip around a little bit because there's a perfect question to end on that I'm going to save till the end, and then I've got two more before that. So you talked a little bit about how you got together, and then Hallie's asking, did you each write sample chapters for each character before deciding who got to write the two characters that you ended up writing?
I think we just dove in.
You just decided who would do what and went
yeah, I think. I don't even know how we decided. I think it was just like, hey, do you want to write the brewing character? So originally it was the brewing character and the witch character.
Yeah.
And we just did.
It worked out really well because I was really like, I want to write the history part and you wanted to write the magic part. And so then that kind of sort of blended it as well. And we had like a vague idea of they will eventually go to the Black Forest. I think that was there from the start, but all the rest of it just sort of happened. Like, we didn't plan that much. It just, I would write a chapter, you would write a chapter, and then the pieces sort of fell together.
Yeah, like a vague outline of like, okay, eventually they need to do X and then get to Y and stuff. But yeah, we just went with it. It didn't start as like we're going to sell this book kind of thing. It was just like a fun project. So it took the pressure out.
Yeah. So you just each decided what was going to be the most fun for you to do. And it just worked out. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay. So the penultimate question, What was your favorite quote from the book? If you have one on the top of your head. And I know you alluded to something earlier, Beth, that was a little bit of a spoiler, so you couldn't like tell us
The one quote that I really like, and it's one of the few things of my dialogue that made it all the way through the drafts, was there's a scene where Otto is talking to another witch hunter, and the other witch hunter is like, I know these people aren't really witches, but I don't really care. It's a job. And Otto's response to that is he had seen the face of evil before, but he never knew it wore the mask of apathy or something like that. So the salient point through my COVID fog is that apathy is just as evil as intended evil. And that I really like that quote. I'm very proud of that one.
I almost don't want to say mine. It's so serious and good and like deep and meaningful. And mine was something that Fritzy says while they're making out.
Well, now you have to share it.
It's something like, I want you to throw me up against the wall and make me see that God of yours. I'm so proud of myself.
To be fair, he does.
He makes her see his Christian God.
I mean,
I think that's the perfect contrast. And again, it shows you what you're in for with the book. There is something for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's the last question. Taylor says, what birthday gift would you give Otto and Fritzy?
Oh, that's a good one.
I feel like Fritzy would love like a terrarium, or like just like any little plant. Like she's a plant witch, so she would just love to have like her life's been in upheaval, moving and running around. So she would love to have just like the shelf of plants that could just be taken care of, and happy little plants. She would be very pleased.
Otto would just really like some beer and some good food. I think he would really enjoy like a nice meal, and he would be fine. My child's trying to break in. Okay, he wants to say hi.
Hi. Hi.
He just got done with soccer practice.
Well, and he was also like, wasn't this thing supposed to be done at 7? It's 7:02. So here we are. That was our last question. And so now, and thank everybody for hanging out for a couple extra minutes. You'll have your mom back in a minute. And so I'll just invite the two of you to share any final thoughts before we wrap up for this evening. Thank you both so much again for this really great conversation.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you, Malaprops. Thank you everybody for tuning in and for helping us celebrate the release day for Night of the Witch. We're so excited to share this book with you. We've told you guys, we can't believe how this journey has come and how we're here now, and it's out and it's there, and it's just a lot of emotion. So thank you guys for sharing that with us.
Yes, thank you so much, especially for accommodating when plans got switched, and just thank you for being here. We do this for you. So thank you.
And the same from us. Thank you all again for being with us this evening. Sara, thank you for being with us, for coming in and signing books today. Beth, thank you for being with us, even though you have COVID, and coming in to sign books in a few days. And thanks to everybody out there. And Sara and Beth, congratulations. Congratulations on Night of the Witch. And we're obviously looking forward to everything that comes next from the both of you as well. So everybody out there, take care of yourselves until we see you some other time. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.